With just a simple squeeze of the trigger, the short-range missiles daisy-chained across the ridge shook as the contents of the firing tubes were throttled out into the bitterly cold winter air. The convoy of light vehicles and the accompanying Wolfhound battlemech had no time to react, as half of the missiles slammed into armor plate and soft vehicle aluminum with their high explosive payloads. Anyone looking uphill from these vehicles might have felt lucky to escape the fiery explosions for a half-second before the other missiles broke apart in midair, spreading out their gelled fuel in a cone shape in front of them. It covered vehicles, the road, and the bottom half of the Wolfhound. A second later, the gel ignited. I had to shield my eyes and turn away from the light and intense heat, ducking back into the snow-filled foxhole. The rest of the unit and I crouched down and prayed that we would not hear the approaching feet of the battlemech. Thankfully, we did not hear anything but the sounds of ammunition cooking off in the flames. I covered my ears. I hoped I would not hear any screaming. Private Carrie Lee, IPIS Planetary Defense Force, Regiment C3, Draconis Combine. Short-range missiles have secured a reputation for effective brutality across the Inner Sphere. It's a reputation earned through countless battles, desperate last-ditch stands, and even in front of cheering crowds of Solaris 7. Of all of the weapons of the 31st and 32nd centuries, the SRM has come the closest to nullifying the advantages that battlemechs have had over all other battlefield combatants. Warfare has always been impacted by the ebb and flow of technology, and even back in the relatively primitive days of the 20th and 21st centuries, a single soldier with a shoulder-launched missile could change the balance of power in the field by taking out a tank, bunker, or even an airplane. The SRM that we know, love, and can be found across the Inner Sphere and beyond is just the latest, more refined version of this ebb and flow. Of course, it's up to the historians to decide if it was more ebb or more flow. In a process similar to the LRM's standardization and miniaturization process, the SRM became a battlefield standard shortly after its introduction in 2365. The scientists and engineers of the Terran hegemony saw the value in maximizing explosive power in situations when attacks were at a short enough range that advanced guidance systems were unnecessary. What resulted was a direct fire missile system that could cause significant damage to a target, needing less fuel and no guidance systems, or very limited ones at best. The overwhelming majority of the missile could be devoted to explosive power. Standard SRM systems come in 2, 4, and 6 missile packs and are very flexible in types of ammunition that they can fire and can benefit from advanced fire control systems like the Artemis. Due to their short range, only up to 9 hexes, and lacking a complex targeting system, SRMs cannot be used for indirect fire. On the bright side, there's no minimum range on the Inner Sphere SRM like with the LRM, so you can feel free to get up in personal with your target and let those missiles fly. The standard damage for the SRM is 2, which is twice what you get out of an LRM. That's sometimes forgotten at first glance, as I know there are quite a few people who are not fans of those SRM-2s. 1 ton of equipment with 50 shots per ton of ammo, 2 heat, and with either 2 or 4 damage on a hit. It's not super awesome, but it's not too shabby either, considering. You're looking at 5 damage on a medium laser with 3 heat for 1 ton of investment. If you needed to keep your heat down and only had a few more tons to invest into weapons, the SRM-2 is not that big of a downgrade from the medium laser. Plus, you can consider those other ammo types. Give it a go next time you build a mech. Who knows, you might become an SRM convert. Not ones to be idle, the Terran hegemony introduced the Streak version of the SRM-2 in 2647 as a way to conserve ammunition. The Streak SRMs have a target lock override, which will prevent the missiles from launching if there is not a hard target lock in place. Once launched, the missiles will be guaranteed to hit their target. In various MechWarrior and Battletech games, the Streak missiles actively hunt down their targets like the proverbial heat-seeking missile. That must mean that the Streak SRM missiles themselves are different than the original, which explains why the ammo cannot be swapped around and shared. I think we're talking about those guidance systems that I mentioned before. The clans understood the value of the Streak SRM, and not only designed the Streak SRM-4 and SRM-6 launchers, but also improved upon their weight and reduced the size of the launcher. The Draconis Combine would end up also developing the Streak SRM-4s and 6s, and the technology would spread throughout the Inner Sphere. One interesting note concerning Streak SRMs is that they didn't end up replacing SRMs as kind of a battlefield standard. In fact, across the Inner Sphere and the clans, standard SRMs are still quite popular. Some suggest that mech warriors are unwilling to hand over control over whether or not their missiles fire when a single missile hitting could make the difference between life and death. When streak missiles were added to MechWarrior Online, people went absolutely nuts with them for weeks. There was barely a light mech left alive in matches as mechs ruthlessly hunted them down. Don't feel sorry for them though, because up until that point the netcode was so rough that hitting a light mech with any weapon was entirely luck and had little to do with aiming at where your computer told you the mech was on the screen. I'm not one to wish harm on people, but you spider pilots out there, ooh, you're really pushing it. In one of those rare occasions in Tabletop Battletech, a new piece of technology, Streak SRMs, actually make the game more streamlined, as all you have to do is make your original 2-hit roll. There's no need to roll for the cluster hits table, as all the missiles are guaranteed hits. If the 2-hit roll is unsuccessful, no missiles are launched, and you don't generate any heat. This guarantee can be impacted by the Angel ECM bubbles, which revert your Streak missiles to behaving like regular SRMs, requiring a roll on the cluster hits table. As far as specialty munitions go, there is some overlap with the LRMs, which we discussed in the previous video. Fragmentation SRMs are great for wiping out groups of infantry through the dispersal of metal shards. A standard fragmentation SRM would do 4 damage to a group of infantry, an SRM 6 would do 24 damage. That'd be enough to wipe out the standard infantry unit. Tear gas SRMs are used to disperse gas into crowds of people, though they only have a very limited possible battlefield use. There are harpoon SRMs, but they're not as cool as they sound. They're literally designed to spear sea creatures and wouldn't work on mechs or vehicles with armor. Sad, I know. My favorite specialty SRM round is the Inferno missile. Instead of a high explosive, the Inferno round carries a chemical gel mixture which showers the target and then ignites. The goal is to either incinerate the target, in the case of infantry, small vehicles, and buildings, or to drive the heat up on a vehicle or battle mech to the point at which it cannot function. Inferno missiles don't do any direct damage to the battle mech, but can damage buildings and infantry based upon rules found in the Total War sourcebook. While popular amongst infantry and small vehicle weapon systems, Infernos are not typically carried on battle mechs because of the danger they pose with a higher probability of ammunition explosions. If a mech carrying Inferno ammunition does suffer from an ammo explosion in that location, that could easily add up enough heat to shut the mech down. Mechs and vehicles also have to watch their running heat, as the hotter you are, the more likely the Inferno rounds can combust, even without a critical hit. For every Inferno missile that hits its target, the target's heat level must go up by 2 points during the heat phase of the turn in which the Infernos hit. This additional heat lasts for 1 turn. Now, I have been known to use Infernos before, typically with infantry and battle armor, and a coordinated strike from multiple weapon systems can effectively take a dangerous mech out of action for long enough that it makes a difference. One of my favorite uses of elemental battle armor is to give them Inferno rounds in their SRM2s and send them hopping towards the nearest hotbox enemy mech. It's a relatively modest investment to potentially shut down a big lasboat mech for multiple turns. Plus, it forces them to have to focus fire on the elementals, which, even if successfully killed off, means fire that isn't directed at your battle mechs. Thanks, elementals. One of my favorite Battletech moments from the novels is from Decision at Thunder Rift, when Grayson Carlyle has used his conventional infantry forces to corner a locust in an alleyway. Rather than destroying the mech, Carlyle threatened the mech warrior with an Inferno launch against her already overheated mech. The prospect of being incinerated in her mech led her to surrender, which, as you might know if you've read the novel, is very fortuitous for Carlyle and the mech warrior. Good times. I put out the call for favorite SRM-equipped mechs and received a flurry of great ones. From the Kentaro, Jenner D, Warhammer, and even the Noble Commando, SRMs can add a little extra punch. The Hatamoto Chi is a really fun mech with 2 PPCs backed up with dual SRM-6s for a little hello to any target that wanders too close. Even some of the bigger mechs like the Atlas, Highlander, and Cyclops have at least 1 SRM on board. While not necessarily my personal go-to for weapon systems, I can definitely respect the SRM for what it can do. I hope you can as well. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the creation of more Battletech content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and even share the video with others who might appreciate it. Big thanks to the Ko-Fi supporters, you're awesome. If you want to see more, check out the Why We Love LRMs video linked above. Now go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.